Hey, I am Monica, and I just wanted to introduce you to my husband, Michael.
Hello.
I tell you guys a lot of stories about us and our relationship and what it was like before and how it is after. But I always tell it through my eyes and how I experienced it. So I thought it would be fun if I got him on camera today and he can give his side of the whole story. My journey to become a better wife really started off, as I told you guys, all about when I went to get my hormones checked and coming to find out that I had gone through very early menopause and then getting these BioT pellets, and then my hormone levels were in check and I was up and running and ready to go. How was the change in the hormones for you?
You were more sexually active, more interested, I guess, in me from that perspective. Your attitude changed a little bit as well. I think you were a little bit more, a little less aggravated or angry or something. I don't know what it was, but yeah, you were just easier to get along with, I think.
When I decided to become a better wife, I never let him know. In fact, he doesn't even know the details to this day of like my plans and my strategies and the thought processes and everything I had to do to trick, and I would say trick myself, but to really kind of rewrite the how I responded to things.
It was a marked change.
There was a marked change. So you were noticing I was initiating more. You think we're like a once a week kind of couple back then?
You sure?
I
don't remember.
You don't remember.
But probably somewhere around there.
And then since I've been on hormones, it's significantly more than that.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh yeah.
When I want relations with my wife, I want to know that she wants to be with me as well. So before, I would say there was less of that desire, or at least perceived like interest in spending time with me, both sexually and non-sexually.
So you took that as a man that I was not interested in you or not attracted to you, or what, how did you take that?
No, but subconsciously, maybe over time, no, still no. Oh, not right now. I have a headache or whatever. That kind of the typical excuse. Or is like, oh well, okay, well, I guess I'm not as desirable as a man.
Now I understood. Like I finally really felt that I understood what guys go through after because it went from like, oh, I could tell, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm down or I'm not. It was very indifferent. So, but to like, let's go, I'm ready. Like, come on, and so I'm initiating all the time, and I actually got a really great response from you, because then I noticed like, oh, you were much more happy, and then in turn started wanting to do things to make me more happy, and it was like this loop. Your response back to me is what really sent me on this trajectory. And then I felt that I couldn't tell you what I was doing, because then you would just say, oh, well, you're just doing this because like you're on a mission. I'm always like very goal and challenge oriented, so you wouldn't receive it.
I wouldn't have received it the same, because then it wouldn't have been about me. It would have been about you.
Yeah, but because I didn't tell you, you still got the benefit of the changes to my behavior and how I responded to you. And I'm not just talking about like sexually, I'm talking like all the changes that I did, which he still doesn't know. So I have it on lockdown for my little secrets.
Whatever, it's all good.
He's very analytical, so he'll be like, is she doing this because she wants to, or is she trying to manipulate me?
Sometimes I do go to that
he's a detective, so he's a
trained observer.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then you booked this trip to San Diego. You planned it all out. You did all the hotels. You planned the event. It was awesome. We did this dinner cruise. So I was like, you didn't know you were responding as well, but you did. Like all this was pretty simultaneous. Now, one of the things that I decided that I was going to do in my whole change was that I was not going to argue with you. So I had to get like really extreme, like in my mind. I had to be like, okay, I know he's gonna piss me off. Like I know this is coming. So how am I gonna handle these times he's pissing me off? And so sometimes I'd sit there and just like, like you could tell I'm mad, but I'm not like verbally responding back. So did you know like you knew I was trying to hold my tongue several times.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure.
So, but did you think like, why is she trying to hold her tongue?
No, I knew that there was some sort of concerted effort to do better, to be better, a better wife, that is, from my perspective, every guy has a different idea of what respect means. To me, to constantly be challenged by my wife and yelled at and questioned, I take a lot of time and I think about a lot of the details when it comes to the decisions or the things that I want to do or that need to do and how I'm going to do it. And then to constantly be challenged and say, well, you sure you want to do it that way? I think you should do it this way all the time. To me, it's a little disrespectful. And I'm part Hispanic too, so there's a little bit of that in there. Where it's a patriarchal society or culture rather, and it still is. But I'm American, so I have a little bit more respect for women and women's rights and a woman's role. And but when it comes back down to it, when I'm constantly being challenged and criticized, I think is more the thing that it debased me. It made me feel less manly, less in control, less as a leader of the household.
I'll question things, but not to be questioning you. Mm-hmm. It's more of a curiosity, like, oh, why? When I say why, and he'll take it as, why you disrespecting me? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm curious to know how your mind's processing it. So still, I think that is something I still at least struggle with, because
there are some cultural differences between your mentality and my mentality. And I will say that, some women or guys even for that matter listening to this might say, oh, he just has to always be right, and it's his way or the highway, and that's kind of bull that he feels disrespected. I can't tell you why I feel like that, but I know a lot of men do feel like that if they're constantly challenged. You gotta let a man lead sometimes.
Right. I think that's a big thing I'm really trying to get women to see is they complain there's no good men or their man won't lead, but they never give them the opportunity to lead. Mm-hmm. So, like, let your man lead. Like, back off. You don't need to be up in the business so much. Just kind of chill and relax. When you're in a car, just you don't need to tell them how to drive. There's times I have to shut my eyes. I have to shut my eyes, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. But
I'm not a crazy driver. I don't know what you're talking about.
But you gotta hit those green lights, don't you, before it turns red. How significant was my change? I know it's hard to quantify.
As a result of your efforts. I don't know.
I like it.
I mean, somewhere in there, 42.5%.
42.593.
But no, I just quantitatively, I can't say for sure, but qualitatively, it was a marked improvement from my perspective, and then being given that power, if you will, and with great power comes great responsibility. If you watch Spider-Man, it's true. As a man, I want that respect, and I want the burden, if you will, of making certain decisions or doing certain things or having an expectation from you to be the man in the relationship. And that's a binary view of the way relationships exist, and in reality it's not so binary, but sometimes it is. I really like the changes or the efforts that you've made, and not only do I enjoy the benefits of said changes, but now I feel an obligation to reciprocate in a way as well, and to be a better husband and do certain things that make you feel like a better woman or a better mother or a better wife.
What would you say to the women who say, oh, well, if my man would just man up and if he would respect me, I would respect him, like where they feel it's upon the man to do the change instead of them initiating change within themselves. My notion has always been like, you cannot change yourself and not change the other person simultaneously, because you're an intertwined unit. Do you think that's kind of the right mindset, where they should just wait for their man to change, or can they do something within their behavior that innately will cause him to elevate and change himself as well?
Well, I think that's an easy answer for me. People always want to point the finger at somebody else. Mm-hmm. They're the problem. They do this. They're that. And it's not just It's not just waiting for someone else to change, because it's never going to happen.
Right.
If you wait for it to change, you have to make it change, and the only thing you can do is what you can do.
Right. Talking to these women, kind of, pointing the finger at you is only because you're the ones that can have the power to change you. He can't change you. You have to change yourself. I had to really also tone down my masculinity. I'm a very feminine woman as far as like exterior, but as far as like my personality goes, I'm much more of a direct, not very verbally expressive with my feelings, and that's something that I am still working on. But it was easier for me, I think, to do because I had what I view as a good man who I can trust, and that made it easier for me. So if you have a man where you're trying to go underneath his leadership, but he hasn't really proven to be a great leader, that might be a little bit more of a difficult journey.
As a man, you have to be a man. You have to be someone that your wife can rely upon physically, emotionally, security, financially, all these different things to do your best. So you have a responsibility to protect your family in so many different ways.
What do you think is the biggest thing that women do that kind of like squash or just cause problems in their relationship? What do you hear from the guys at work that they complain about their wives about? Beyond not enough sex. That's kind of like a given.
Guys always want more sex. I think that is a given. And we don't really sit around in circles and talk about this kind of stuff, really. Like, just what does your woman do? How does that make you feel? What I think that I've extrapolated from that, and then from my own experiences as well, is that I need, in a relationship, I want somebody to support me the best they can, to not stifle me, to not browbeat me, to not beat me down, because I'm the one that's supposed to be standing up and providing and protecting.
Right.
And I can't do that if I'm being beaten down from the inside. If the people, the ones that I love the most, that I have the duty to the most, are the ones that are beating me down and constantly expressing dissatisfaction, disgust even at certain things, disappointment, all these sorts of things that completely take away from my pride as a provider and as a man and as a husband. If I'm constantly being, like I said, browbeaten or questioned all the time, it's not going to lend to good feelings and that lack of that synergy. I mean, you have to understand it as an individual or as a woman or a wife, what you're doing and what you're saying, how it's going to affect your man. Constantly feeding negativity into your husband, you're going to get negative responses, or you're going to have someone that's bitter, or someone that's just not happy, and therefore it's not going to treat you the right way, because they're not inclined to. If you have negative emotions towards someone, what benefit is it of you to show support, to be loving, to be happy and share that happiness with your spouse? It's not there.
What responsibility do you feel that men need to do in correcting behavior that's not helpful?
Well, there is that. I'm pretty sure you've mentioned it before. Happy wife, happy life. And I hear a lot of guys saying that, and I'm like, oh, happy wife, happy life. I'm like, no. I mean, because then it goes both ways. It could go both ways. And, it can't always just be a lazy woman sitting on her couch watching Oprah, eating bonbons, and complaining about her husband and all the faults that he has, when she could be doing things to be uplifting and a positive force, lifting her husband up, making him feel valued and loved, and then he'll reciprocate.
So I'm very specific in when you're saying when you're to help him feel valued and loved. What does that look like? What action and which words would you say someone could say, or an action they could do to do that? Because that's where I'm always like, you've told me this before. You're like, oh, I sometimes wish you were more loving. And I'm like, what does that look like? Mm-hmm. Give me the actions, what words? Like, because that is fluffed. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. For me, respect is huge. Showing respect, feeling the respect, physical shows of affection, hugging, kissing, looking at, paying attention to me. The different things that I think every human being needs. But being told I love you, kind of noticing whatever it is your significant other, your spouse is doing that are positive things, and then giving them kudos, just like, like an employee. If you have an employee you want to, or a subordinate of any, or a coworker for that matter, they do something right, you want to give them kudos a little bit, because people react really well to positive reinforcement. And
even if it's their job and they're supposed to do it,
right,
they still like to hear it.
Right, we like to hear it. And I tell you I love you, and I like to hear it spontaneously from you. I like to know that you want to spend time with me, that you enjoy spending time with me, that you appreciate the sacrifices that I'm making for you and our family. So it's just what you say and what you do physically as well.
It's the things that you say and the things that you do, or it's the things that you don't say and the things that you don't do. It really boils down to those 4 things. You even getting far more specific. Like, I love that. I love when you can go into a conversation with people while we're waiting at a restaurant, and it like alleviates that burden for me. Or the fact that you're comfortable enough, that you're extroverted enough to have these conversations.
You're probably not going to get that too much from guys.
I'm just saying, that's an example. Like, the more specific, I think the more specific, like, of these things that you can hone in on, I think that makes it more valuable, personally, than just getting an I love you. Because to me, I love you is nice to hear, but it's also a little bit lazy. There's no thought. It's better than nothing.
I don't need thought. I need emotion.
Yeah. No, I know, but
I want emotion from you. I want some sense of warmth, right? And that's maybe vague for you, but I love you, or I missed you, or I was I'm calling you and saying I was thinking about you. What are you up to? Something like that,
One thing I worked really hard on was being open to criticism, and it's not that it's criticism, but like separating the complaint from me as a person to the behavior. So where now, instead of going to full defensive mode of like, well, if you don't like this, why'd you even marry me? Which was kind of like a previous thing I used to do, right? Like, well, if you hate all these things about me, then being receptive to hearing things that need to be said, even if you agree with them or not. The person who knows you the best and wants nothing but the best for you and loves you and is telling these things not because he's trying to be an asshole, but because he wants you to have the best life and be the best person possible. I remember telling you one time that you're chewing your gum really loud, and I was like, I'm not doing this to make you feel bad. I'm doing this because I want you to be aware of a behavior that if you do this at work might be embarrassing to you. So the pace of what I was telling you was like from the heart, because I cared and I didn't want you to be embarrassed at work. And I don't think you liked when I told you that you were chowing your gum like a cow or whatever it was. But like, what's the intent and of the message that you're trying to convey? Things like that. You said you want to be more respected. Like, what was a behavior that I did, or anything of that nature?
So I would think it would be more, if you were talking about respect specifically, it was more what you didn't do than what you did do. In regards to respect, it wasn't, are you sure that's a good idea? A statement like that, or I don't think you thought that all the way through, or you're an idiot. Oh God, don't ever say anything like that. You know what I mean? Because these words that you have, they do make an impression, an indelible impression upon the mind of your spouse. And if you say it enough, you kind of determine your own reality. These words that sting, and then they keep constantly getting beat into you, and you hear them over and over again. And then eventually your reality is, I'm a shit husband.
Instead of elevating and making him feel good, and him getting that ego boost that's so important to guys, and then you send him out into a work environment, and you have a gal who starts saying nice things in his ear, like, you're really setting yourself up.
You're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that. But
you're really setting yourself up for problems. Like, you don't set your husband up emotionally, like, devalued, nor do you set him out sexually devalued because you are just basically just asking for problems.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster for sure. I
Yeah.
never thought of it that way, but I do. I 100% agree. From my perspective, a man, um, his worth is based upon the money he makes and the respect that he gets from his family, from his wife. And the wife is the most important person to give or take respect away. I mean, I can't think of anybody else. Maybe a boss, or but maybe not even a boss, because that is the person you've chosen, and they've ostensibly chosen you too, and now they don't value anything about you. They have to,
or at least it feels
value.
that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it feels that way because that's all you hear. You may think differently, but what you say is what matters because
they'll never know if you don't tell them.
That's it. So that's why it really matters from a sense of respect and value and love of what you're saying specifically. The specific verbiage or vocabulary is up to you.
Well, what if somebody doesn't feel those things?
Well, that sucks.
What do you do?
That's a whole nother conversation of speaking something into reality. I can't really speak to that or how effective that would be. The perspective that I'm coming from it is that I always try as hard as I can to be a good husband, to provide, to show love, to do the right and good things for us as a family and as a husband. And I hope that all that effort has good consequences. So if I hear, oh, I love you, or thank you for doing that, or taking it upon yourself to do this, or I wasn't expecting that, thank you so much. If it's warranted anywhere in your mind, it should be coming out of your mouth. It absolutely should be coming out of your mouth. Because I think guys need to be told explicitly what they're doing right. Because if you don't tell them explicitly, I think a lot of women communicate telepathically. but guys, they talk and they need to be told something in order for the information to be transferred. And especially something else that gets to me with respect is speaking in front of other people. If you say anything negative about your spouse in front of somebody else, oh my
Big
God.
no.
That's it's not just
a sin.
It's like it is exponentially much more serious. So if you say like F you or you're a piece of shit or whatever in anger, but we're alone, yeah, it's going to piss me off and I'm not going to like it and it's going to have consequences for our relationship. But then say something even a little bit more mild, like now you're with another couple and you say, Michael can't figure his head from his ass with finances. That's why we're poor. He can't do this right. He's a lazy whatever. And you say that and oh my God, if someone were to say something like that in front of other people about me, that's it. That's over. I mean, like that is the ultimate disrespect to show because it's other people, and I typically don't care what other people think, but it speaks to me about how you feel about me. Right. If you're willing to not just feel these things, then say these things, and now say these things in front of other people that are not or should not be important as we are to one another.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
I have created I call it the men's hierarchy of needs triangle.
Is that Maslow?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the very bottom, at the foundation, is respect.
Okay.
For a man, how I perceive the men's core needs. And then on the second layer is sex, and then on the top layers, the little tiny triangle is food. If they can only get one thing right, the respect is the one thing. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. I would say that is.
It trumps even sex.
I begrudgingly agree.
One thing I didn't realize was how important food's been a struggle. For our family, because I hate cooking. And then it's also at the same time very important for you that I cook. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to bridge this gap here of importance.
Just to be clear, she's not the only one that cooks. I cook, I participate.
I'm not making that claim.
I'm just saying, I want to get that on the record. But
I'm not making that claim.
I would say that you're talking about a triangle, a hierarchy of needs. It's more of those three principles are more of a foundation of things that are important for things that are less important. Because there are things that are important but are less important than those three factors there. They're almost equally important. Almost.
What would you say?
What?
What additional things?
Well, just little things, she doesn't like to go to baseball games with me or something like that. Or, those little things are just little things. But what a man really needs are those three things. That's the foundation.
Right.
For the house that you're building upon.
Yeah.
Or building on.
Of needs versus like wants.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what.
Yeah.
That's
they're almost. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a triangle per se. They're almost equally important to one another.
Food cannot be nearly as important as respect. It's not a deal breaker.
Respect and sex are closer to being one.
Right.
But food, to me, I mean, different guys, different strokes for different folks. But to me, food is important. I mean, you look traditionally back at certain women in certain cultures that your value was based upon your ability to make a home. And now with transforming roles, where women are in the workforce a lot more than they used to be. Mm-hmm. Can't expect a woman to do everything. You can't. However, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and you've heard that. I assume you've heard that before.
Yeah.
But there's some truth to that. Absolutely.
That's fruit. I just didn't make the connection early on, like the level of importance. I knew, of course, all men enjoyed good food, but like to actually put it into the need section of versus a want, at least in regards to our relationship. Because I would, if you think about it, like if the significance of food, if another woman baked you a pie, I'm going to have a problem with that.
She makes
my
pie.
mother and my daughter are the only females that are allowed to cook for you.
I could see that. I made this pie just for you.
Yeah, I would have, I'd be like okay, this is not going to end well.
It'd be like another man coming into the house and fixing something for you without you asking me first.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't know how to do.
I've had to elevate my game begrudgingly, but I do it because it's important to you, and that's and you all need to not die. Another thing I like to touch on is that I don't think a lot of men correct their women as often as they need to. That might not sound PC in this day and age, but I really believe the crux of everything boils down into that men do not correct poor behavior of women.
I think that can go both ways.
But it's not, I don't think it's a woman's job to correct a man's behavior.
In certain circumstances, it can be. I mean, but most of the time, maybe not, especially in public, like we just discussed about.
They let disrespect go unchecked.
It sounds a little hard-lined. If something is wrong, then, it needs to be addressed. And, I will address an issue if I feel consistently disrespected. Check your wife if she's not doing the right thing, especially in public, but...
I think it's an obligation as a husband. You have to make sure the time is correct, but as close to the behavior as possible. It's just like having kids. Like, you don't like wait a week and then be like, oh, by the way, a week ago you did this and I don't like this. So, but it doesn't have to be not loving. But they need to be, that poor behavior needs addressed. They may not even be aware that they're being disrespectful.
And anybody receiving any kind of criticism or being checked in this case should take that opportunity to reflect and say, hey, maybe I can make an improvement.
Yeah, you should be willing to hear. Hear.
And that's, once again, that's another thing in
really
society
hard
now.
to do, but really one thing I had to work hard on.
Hard for people to accept responsibility for their actions and the consequences of their behavior or actions or choices. But if your significant other is telling you, hey, you're doing something, distinctly wrong, then it's something you should at least reflect upon.
What I used to do, the old wife, was I had this like validity filter in my brain, and I would run what he would say to me through this validity filter. I'm like, oh, is this true? Nah, it's not true, no. And I would just kind of disregard and be like, just kind of, all right, yeah. But now I don't do that, because if he's bringing something up, it's important enough to bring up. But I do notice that I'm bringing up things all the time to you. You don't come to me and be like, I need to talk to you about something. Like, hardly ever. Why is that?
I don't know. I don't feel the need to discuss as much. I think as you do. I don't really know why I don't bring it up most of the time. I take the opportunities when you're talking to me about my down behavior, whatever it is, to respond with my own. Well, by the way, in the last couple months, I've been noticing this and that.
Yeah, and I'm like, why are you just bringing it up now then? Why? I'm like, well.
Now you want to talk about it. And there we go. So I don't know. I'm less likely to much less likely to initiate a conversation.
Yeah, you are.
But I have noticed, going back to what you were saying about like being, uh, I would say something, and she would hear me, but she wouldn't. She wouldn't. She would listen, but she wouldn't hear.
Yeah.
And it was abundantly clear to me that that's what she was doing. So instead of having a respectful conversation back and forth about like, oh, I understand this is the way you feel, but this is the way I feel about that, and back and forth, and you guys discuss it. Instead of that, it was like, okay, sure, whatever, kind of thing. Or I know she didn't hear a word I just said. Now I'm feeling disrespected. Talking about going back to respect.
Mm-hmm.
You don't respect me enough to at least hear what I have to say and at least have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you that you have to do what I tell you to do, but at least have the conversation about it to let me explain to you why I feel this way or what. But you didn't respect me enough to even have that conversation before.
Right.
Now you do.
Right.
And that does a lot for my perception of you and for our relationship, for me to feel respected at least and to be heard.
There's been several times when I know like I've disrespected you and you have not called me out on it. And I'm like, dude, why did he just let that go? Like in my mind, I'm like, why did he let that go? When I was trying to make this change, I was hyper aware of how I would talk to you or respond to you, or the times I was disrespectful. So I would try to proactively apologize. I don't know if I actually wrote about this. Do you remember yeah? And
I don't remember the circumstances.
And it's not. I'm not apologizing for feeling that way or whatever. I'm apologizing for the words I used. Not that I'm sorry for how I'm feeling. I'm apologizing for my behavior and the things that I said. I remember calling you a fucking asshole for something.
I don't remember that.
Oh, see, I did. You wanted me. Yes, you wanted me to say goodnight to Madison. I was like, hold on. I was reading something on the phone. I was like, I'll be there in a minute. And you said something back to me. It made me feel like I was a bad wife. I mean, a bad mom. And so, as you were walking away, I was like, oh, fucking asshole. And so you go down the hall and you say goodnight to Madison. And you come back and you don't say a word to me. I'm like sitting there thinking, is he going to say anything? And all the time I'm like, he's not going to say anything. That's a behavior I think that should have been called out.
Because I remember the sentiment, like you don't care enough to say goodnight to our kids. You don't want to go say goodnight together. Your phone is more important to you or whatever it is you got going on. All right, I'm going to say bye to the kids while you have a love affair with your phone.
It was something like that. Yeah.
But, and I was pissed off about it, because I have certain expectations about what you're going to do as a mother and as a wife. And when you fall short, I do bring it up. But when to say something that just like that, it kind of just more like cemented my feeling about that. I'm like,
I think that could have been handled better on your end.
Once again, if that had been said in front of somebody else, that would have been a whole nother issue.
Right.
When it was in the privacy of just between you and I, it didn't bother me as much. And I was already kind of like up to here with you at that point. I don't always feel I'm good at picking and choosing my battles because I always feel like I'm bringing stuff up. It's important to be able to be heard when I bring stuff up, but I also feel like I have to temper my responses sometimes as well, in the interest of peace. Maybe I didn't hear you.
Oh, you heard me. I'm like, trust me, you heard me. Just because I did the majority of a change within, I'd say probably 6 months. I was really trying to very actively, when you're trying to change for a marathon, you're training. I went through this training for about 6 months, but it's not like something that's ever done. Like, because we still, particularly when I started filming and like really like, okay, I'm gonna write this course and these things I've learned. And then I felt like as soon as I decided to do that, that's when we started having like more issues. like why are we? I thought I had this nailed down. I thought, and then all of a sudden, it's never done. Like, I do feel the maintenance is easier. It's never over. It's never over.
Just like everything in life, most of the effort is up front.
Yeah.
And then it's maintenance after that. I'm happy.
Yay.
I'm happy with the results of her efforts to make change. I suggested that you might be cheating on me because, like, all of a sudden you're dressing prettier, you're acting nicer. I'm like, are you trying to did you cheat on me because you're trying to atone for something that you did that you shouldn't have done? Because what's going on here? This isn't normal.
Like, yes, you did that. You actually said we need to talk, and coming over, and he's like, are you cheating on me? I'm like, what? I have been the best wife ever. I match the Valentine's Day card now, okay, you guys? The Valentine's Day where you open up the card and be like, you're the best wife and I'm so lucky to have you. I like actually feel like I'm deserving of those words now. And I was like confused. I'm like, so that is when I actually had to let him in. Like, no, I've just really been trying to be a better wife for you. I've been working hard on myself.
Are you joking?
No, you were dead serious. You called me over to the couch and be like, I need to talk to you.
I don't remember these
things. And he doesn't remember.
I do remember the sentiment, the feeling, the thought of like, what's going on because something's different.
Yeah, something's different.
And it was good. It was all good. I hope it's making me a better husband with you being a better wife. I have a higher bar.
Your husband's naturally going to, when he sees you elevating and doing the right things, he's naturally going to be inspired to elevate and do the right things too. So that's the whole thing.
I don't want to be a douchebag while she's all super nice
and
giving and loving and all that stuff, and I'm just like, I can't see that ever happening.
Right. You're going to get what you give out back at you. So the more you give out, the better you're going to get love back. Where do you think the average guy is? Are most guys fairly happy? Are most guys like, what are you experiencing out there? The general sentiment of married men.
I don't think a lot of married people are living their best life. Marriage is a beautiful thing. There is something to the longevity of it and everything that you cannot have not being in a marriage. So I don't want to talk negatively about marriage itself. I wouldn't say that the majority of people that I can think of off the top of my head are miserable per se.
Okay.
But they are certainly not where they could or should be. I think there's so much more potential there, so much more potential from marriage than most people are getting out of it.
Yes, I agree.
For me, it's a big part of happiness in life. So there can be a lot of improvements in people's life and outlook on life and just general demeanor if some changes are made.
I think the kind of like the one surprise thing that I learned, the biggest thing is like, ultimately, my happiness comes more down into serving and really trying to figure out what makes you happy. So I see the reaction. I'm like, oh, man, I'm so happy. Like seriously, like if you're always the time, if you can actually like get out of and it's very difficult thinking about like, okay, me. If they're coming home and they're being nasty towards you, you'd be like, oh, why he's being such a dick towards me? It has nothing to do with you. He's probably like had a rough day at work, or he could be hungry, or he could be tired, or something. And somehow magically you've already turned it around to where it's about you. This is not normal behavior. So really trying to turn it around to, obviously he must be having a day. Are you okay? Did you have a bad day at work? What's going on? You're kind of grumpy right now. What can I do to help you? It's kind of a nice way to express I don't like your behavior, but from a place of concern and love. That's it. Okay, well, thank you, baby.
Thank you, baby.
For giving your point of view on our marriage and of marriage.
Yes.
Sorry, ladies. Sorry, taken. In mine. Go away. All right, and we are done.